And get started. So I'd like to introduce you to Gabriella Perkins with Drive Electric Colorado. She's the Denver Metro representative for this program with an exciting program. And then later we'll hear from Elisa from Xcel Energy. Gabriella.
Awesome. Thanks, Bonnie. Thank you to JBES and the Jeffco team for taking the time to be here with us and celebrate Earth Day. So we're really excited to host this workshop for you guys today. So I'll be presenting today with Elisa Sobczak, who's a representative for Xcel Energy. I'm sorry if I butchered your last name, Elisa. But we're excited to have her on with us today because she will provide a lot of incentives about through Xcel Energy, what's provided through there, and that's primarily the region that you're located in. So if you live within that area, that will be really valuable information for you. Okay. So just a couple things. I'm sure you guys are experts at Zoom meetings at this point because we all just do them all the time. But reminders, use your video. We'd love to see you today. Use the chat box to ask questions or to network with one another. I really want to encourage you to use that for conversation today. Try to keep yourself muted unless you're speaking so that we don't have any kind of weird interference. And then I just want to let you guys know this is a recorded webcast today. Okay, next. And then happy Earth Day. Let's kick off by saying that it's Earth Day today. So we appreciate setting up and taking the time during your morning to spend that with us and celebrate. So we'll kick things off by doing some introduction and stage setting, which is what I'm doing now. Then I'll provide an electric vehicle 101, just an overview of electric vehicles, their benefits, their drawbacks, all those different things. And then I'll talk about incentives and tax credits available for electric vehicles and charging. And then we have a really fun ride and drive video with special guests, Commissioner Andy Kerr. He took some time to test drive 3 different EVs with us a couple weeks back, and we filmed it all and put together a really nice video for you guys. So we'll play that and hopefully give you a taste of some EVs in this COVID environment in a safe way. So then after that, I will kick it over to Elisa at Xcel, and she's going to talk about EV charging and chargers. And then we'll talk about accessing public charging stations, and then we'll have just a Q&A session where we'll go through any questions that came through in the chat, and you can ask any live as well and get all your questions answered. So that being said, I know you guys already took the survey, so we'll kick that one off, and I will just start right into content here. So I just wanted to go over the types of electric vehicles. There's a couple different kinds, so I just wanted to make it 100% clear to you what the types are out there. So when you're going and shopping around and looking, you're fully educated and aware of what that looks like. So there's a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, or also known as a PHEV. You might hear that sometimes. And there's 100% electric zero-emission vehicles. So you can see the range differences in those, and that's because some use gasoline and some use just battery electric vehicles. So in a hybrid, this car is a gas and battery electric vehicle, and it uses the gas to kind of power the battery. So it's always emitting, but less so than a gas vehicle. So for that reason, it's not considered a fully zero emission vehicle because it just has reduced pollution, not totally eliminated. Then a plug-in hybrid that has a gas tank in it as well, but you have the option of running on the full battery electric system in there. So you have the option. The range is a lot shorter. Usually it's between 30 and 60 miles on most PHEVs. But if you recharge that and run off of that, you can drive in a 100% zero emission vehicle. And then the 100% electric is just your all battery electric vehicle. You see the range on those vary greatly between models, but it's 100% battery. There's no gas in that. You can't put gas into it. So then why electric vehicles? When I'm talking to people like yourselves about what electric vehicles are and such, and what the benefits are, these are my 4 go-to points. It's a clean alternative to your gas and conventional vehicles. Cost savings, you save money over the life of the vehicle because there's less maintenance involved in electric vehicles. You won't have to do any oil changes. You have less brake maintenance because of the regenerative braking system. So that really saves you money over time. And then domestic energy independence, we won't have to rely on foreign fuels as much because we're not going to the pump to fuel our vehicles anymore. And then the fun factor, I think it's a little bit of a different experience when you drive an electric vehicle. They're silent, some of them are really high tech looking, so it's just a really fun experience for everyone. So I recommend if you haven't gotten out to try one, please do. The dealerships are really good at setting up really safe, sanitized spaces now. So I recommend you get out there if you're comfortable doing so. Then benefits of electric vehicles, my 3 go-to points usually are time, health, and money. time, you just spend less time at the gas stations. You can charge your EV overnight at home, so you wouldn't even have to stop to charge anywhere if you plan it out that way. They have superior acceleration. They've got a really excellent pickup, and if you've tried that before, you've probably experienced that. Less time waiting for heat in the winter. A lot of these cars precondition themselves, so you get out, the batteries are warm, the car's warm, it's great, set to go. Health, you have reduced exposure to benzene and other volatile organic compounds. So all the fumes that you're breathing when you're around conventional vehicles, I know you guys can smell that. You can probably think of what it smells like right now when you're at a bus station or a gas station or somewhere where there's a lot of vehicles. It's just not good to breathe that in. So if you can avoid being around it, and even with your own personal vehicle, it's good to do so. They run quieter as long as there's no engine. And okay. Whoops, sorry, didn't mean to skip that there. And then money. So that's lower maintenance, less oil changes. And then the cost of powering an electric vehicle is far fewer per mile driven than compared to its conventional counterparts. And electricity is just generally cheaper than gas or diesel fuel. That's just how it is. It's a lot cheaper. We'll go over what the price structures of that looks like, and Excel can chime in on that as well. Then I wanted to talk to you a little bit about driving qualities of EVs. They're not super different than what you'd see to your conventional vehicles, but there are some differences, so I'd like to point those out. Instant peak torque, that's that acceleration. They get right to where they need to be. You can push on the gas and it goes up so quickly. So you're gonna feel that instant peak torque. Regenerative braking, that's a feature unique to EVs. You'll start to feel like, people call it like a rubber band effect. When you take your foot off the accelerator, you'll start to feel the vehicle start to slow itself down. What's actually happening is the motor is running itself backwards, and it's capturing that energy used to slow the vehicle down and putting it back into the battery. So it's really fun, because if you're going on a downhill drive, like Pikes Peak there was a group of drivers that did this in Pikes Peak with an EV, and they actually gained like 20% battery by driving down the hill and using regen braking, which is really cool. It's fun to play with if you've got a hilly drive and things like that. You can't have that type of experience in a conventional vehicle, that's for sure. And then the battery pack at the bottom, I wanted to touch on this because this makes the vehicle so much safer. So rigidity increases safety. That's just true. So it's really hard to roll over an EV. If you've seen, Tesla does some really cool crash test safety videos where they're like slamming the car as hard as they can up against this like curb or ledge, and it just will not flip over. It'll tip and go right back down because the batteries, if you'll see here, they lie most of the time on the bottom of the vehicle, and that just makes it so bottom heavy and just a really safe option compared to their conventional counterparts. And then low noise and better handling. I just want to point those out because EVs are really quiet and they do handle really well. Then we have to address these because there are some drawbacks. Everything's not perfect. So we wanted to go over those and what people consider drawbacks in EVs and how we address those. On longer trips, if you're taking like a road trip, for instance, it's a little bit harder to charge and can take a little bit longer to fill up. There's a lot more level 3 options becoming available over time. So you can stop at places and corridors off of highways like park and rides and stuff and get a quick fill up on a level 3. But in some places you still can't do that. So if you want to plan a long trip, you need to plan out a route or rent an internal combustion vehicle or a gasoline vehicle to get you where you need to go. There's a lot of great apps, and I'll touch on those later on in the presentation, that you can use to actually plan a road trip with your EV, and it'll make sure you have charging all along the way. You just put the range of your vehicle in and it'll map out the whole thing for you to make sure that you have charging your whole road trip. So it is possible, and I'll show you what resource that is later. And then few charging stations currently, but more and more are being installed every day. That is becoming less and less of an issue as well. I'll show you guys what the map of the Denver metro region looks like with charging. There's just so much available everywhere, and you'll learn about charging on a level 1 at home and all those different things that it's just, there's plenty of charging available to you. Upfront cost is always another drawback I hear as well. So it's got a higher upfront cost. Batteries are becoming cheaper, so we're seeing prices of EVs drop over time, but they are still a little more expensive than their counterparts in some instances with most manufacturers. High depreciation rates and low resale rates. That's just the case with every new technology. We anticipate that will change as well as when the used market becomes a little more attracted to EVs. But there's also, you have to keep in mind, there's a $7,500 tax credit on a lot of these EVs. So the price of the vehicle has already dropped so much. So it just depreciates your value right off the top there. So there's such great incentives. There's a drawback to that as well when you go try to resell. You may need to replace your tires more often because of that acceleration. It really can peel out sometimes if you're not used to it. So putting it on eco mode or doing things like that can help mitigate things that way. You may also need to pay for a level 2 charger at home. If you want a quicker charger and you're not comfortable just using a level 1 charger, you might need to pay for additional wiring or a dryer plug to be installed for a level 2 in your garage. I wanted to talk about driving EVs in the winter because we live in Colorado, so that's something that we have to talk about. And there's a lot of myths and things out there about how EVs operate in cold weather in the winter as well. So extreme cold impacts range, that's just something that's true. Passenger heating requires more energy and batteries have a greater resistance to charge and don't hold the charge as well. Technology is improving to help mitigate that. You see things like thermally managed batteries. You'll hear words like that. And sometimes some of the battery systems will have like a thermal like cooling and heating system surrounding it so that it can condition the batteries to like stay at that ambient temperature level and operate at the highest level of efficiency. So that's always something to keep in mind when you're shopping for an EV, to just ask your sales rep or who's ever helping you about that, just to make sure that you are working with a high-tech battery system that can help you be the most efficient EV driver. Drivers can also help to offset this. If you put your car in eco mode, that's just going to help you conserve battery, just like it would with gas in your conventional vehicle. And then also using your HVAC system less. If it's not, sometimes I just like putting it on just like a regular room temp and just like blowing it at me. So it's just like fresh air. But if you can avoid that, crack your window if it's like a normal type of day, and put your seat warmer on or things like that to help mitigate that battery loss as well. The reduction is typically like 25% to 40% battery reduction in cold weather. So doing those things to help mitigate that will always help you. I wanted to talk about how many EVs are on the road in Colorado. This number is just creeping up over time. I was so excited to check this yesterday. As of April 1st, it's 35,146 EVs in Colorado. And then you could see how many EVs per 1,000 people there, how many level 2 chargers, and DC ports that's level 3 charging. So that's across the board in Colorado. So we're starting to see more and more action in that area. And I'll make sure that I send this slide deck out to you guys as well, so you have access to these resources. Don't be too overwhelmed by this chart here. It's just something I wanted to show you because electric vehicles that are currently available are a lot cheaper than people think they would be. So if you're looking at this starting price here, you'll see it's a lot lower than what people talk about, or like rumors I hear in the market. Sometimes I hear like 50, 60, 70K, and I'm like, what models are you looking at? I mean, there's certainly some that are priced that way, but there are some affordable EV options, and this isn't a full list by any means. There's plenty more out there, and this price was dated in December, so you can imagine these numbers have probably changed over time, and there's different deals going on and things like that. And don't forget about incentives on top of these. You've got your federal and your state tax credits as well. I'll go over those later so that you know what you have available to you that they can knock right off the top at most dealerships. Let's see. I wanted to talk about EVs that are coming to the market soon. There's so much development going on with every manufacturer, I think, has announced that they have an EV coming soon. So there's a lot going on in the space now. So this is just a general list of EVs that I've heard about that people are super excited about, and I wanted to share with you guys. Most of them are going to be available by mid-2022, these models. So we've got the Nissan Ariya. There's been a lot of hype around that for a while. The Mazda MX-30, the Audi Q4 e-tron. Audi already has the e-tron, but this is more of the crossover series of that vehicle. The Kia EV6, they have the Kia Niro, but this is the next addition to their EV family. BMW iX3. BMW also has a lineup of EVs coming out, and then Mercedes has this awesome little crossover as well. And then there's also a ton of electric pickup trucks. I know a lot of the development and release of these has got delayed because of COVID. So now that vaccinations are rolling out and there's a lot less shortages in certain things, though we are still seeing some chip shortages in manufacturing, I think this will start to change over time and we'll start to see some of these releases happening soon. Ford has their F-150 electric pickup there on the top left, the Nikola Badger, the Bollinger B2, that kind of boxy Hummer style truck there. The Atlas, the GMC Hummer, they actually came out with their electric version, coming soon. Rivian truck, people have been really excited about that. The Lordstown Endurance, and then of course the Tesla Cybertruck. Those are all models that are coming soon. So a lot of different EVs coming to the space. Okay, so I'm gonna go over incentives before I hand this off to, I think the video is next actually. So let's go over some incentives and see how you can get some money off of your EV purchase here. So I recommend visiting the driveelectriccolorado.org website for all resources related to this week. I got a ton of different information on these tax credits, incentives, and as well as charging and stuff. So I'll just be sure to reiterate that a bunch of times so that you guys have the website in your mind. Claim an additional tax credit of $4,000 when you buy an EV. That's actually $2,500. I'm sorry, it's $2,500, January 1st, 2021. So this tax incentive rolls over. So you'll want to talk to your tax advisor about this because you can claim $2,500 off of a purchase of an EV. There's also a federal tax credit. So the state tax credit applies to all EVs across the board. You get $2,500. For the federal tax credit, you can qualify for up to $7,500 off of your vehicle. Now, this is totally dependent on how much you pay in federal taxes. So you can qualify for up to $7,500, but it might not fall into that amount. It's 100% dependent on how much the purchaser pays in federal taxes. Your credit can be claimed through your return as well. So you'll want to talk to your tax advisor about this credit and how much you are eligible for. There's also an additional federal tax credit for charging infrastructure. So anyone who purchases or installs a charger on their residential property can receive a federal tax credit of up to $1,000. I was really excited to see this one restart. So this was a 2020 and it rolled over and they revamped it again for 2021. So I was really excited that this credit is still available. This can also be claimed on your federal tax return. So that's another one you'll just want to mention to your tax advisor if you install a charger. One other source of funding, if you know of a condo, if you live in a condo or an apartment complex, or you have a partner at a workplace or you own a side business or anything like that, where you think, hey, we could use an EV charger on site. That would be awesome. That's great because I work with a bunch of different organizations across the state to help find funding for that. So it's through the Charge Ed Colorado grant. You could get $9,000 for a level 2 charger and $30,000 for a level 3 charger. So put us in touch with your property manager and we're happy to help connect you with those resources, and we even help write the application. So it's a great deal and we'd love to help get some more level 2 chargers in the area. So let us know if you know anyone. Great. Okay, now's the fun part. I'm excited for this one. So we had our special EV guest driver, Commissioner Andy Kerr. He was such a good sport and came out and test drove some EVs in celebration of Earth Day for us. So I'm going to go. He was on site at the Jeffco building, which is a gorgeous building, by the way. So this was a really good time for us to shoot. So I'm just going to show you some footage and hopefully get you familiar with these 3 different EVs that you might not have seen before. So let's go ahead and start the video. I want to make sure I'm sharing my sound here.
Oh, you do? Huh. I've got it if you want to move over here.
Hey, I'm Gabriella with Denver Metro Clean Cities Coalition. We're here today at the Jefferson County building to get Commissioner Andy Kerr to test drive some electric vehicles. We have some fairly new models with us today, so we're excited to get him to test drive. Let's get started.
Hi, I'm Jefferson County Commissioner Andy Kerr. I'm here at the Jefferson County Government Buildings. We're going to be test driving some EVs today. I've never driven an EV before, so I'm really excited to try it out. So for the most part, the feel, other than maybe turning it on and changing gears, it pretty much is just like driving a regular car. Nice pickup there. Up to and to the speed limit very quickly. It's like I'm just driving a car. It's nothing even too different about it. So this is the Ford Mustang. It says we're at 89%, 223 mile range at this point. Oh, this is cool. It has not just the back, but also the overhead view. Very sporty. I don't normally drive a Mustang, but this is certainly more sporty than the family wagon I usually drive. And I like got nice quick pickup, again handling very much. I don't feel like I'm driving an EV. I feel like I'm driving a sports car. Accelerates right up that hill, no problem. I know how steep that little hill is there because that's a hill I ride a lot on my bike, and always gear way down and slow way down to get up that hill, and this just popped right up it like it was nothing. Yes, and being a cyclist, it's nice to know that I'm not producing any smoke out the back end to smoke out any pedestrians or cyclists that we might be going by. Very natural feeling of just driving a car. Makes me wonder, because I don't know necessarily how to identify EVs on the road, and makes me wonder how many other EVs are out there that people aren't even really aware of, because kind of blend right in. Wow, this has been a great opportunity. I just test driven 3 different EVs, all very different, but all very comfortable. And we didn't use 1 drop of gasoline. I want to thank Denver Metro Clean Cities for bringing the cars out, giving me the opportunity to test drive them. And happy Earth Day, everyone. Let's do what we can to make sure that we keep our air and water and land as clean as we can. And I'll see you soon. Thanks.
All right. Well, I wanted to see if we had Commissioner Kerr on the call with us today. Are you on the phone with us today, Commissioner?
Oh, I'm right here.
Great. Thanks for joining us today. I wanted to see if any of you all had any questions about his experience in his test drive. And then I was just curious, what was your favorite EV that you drove? And just if you had a few words about your experience that day.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said in that first one, I started with the Kia, then I went to the Mustang, and then I went to the VW after that. The first thing, and I mentioned it with the Kia and the Mustang, it was 90% of it was just like driving a regular car. I know we don't call them regular cars, but it really wasn't that much different. A little bit about starting the car, and obviously hooking up the charger and things like that. But really, if you drive an internal combustion now, you can drive an EV tomorrow. There's just not all that much difference. The Mustang was certainly fun. I've never owned a sports car before, and so that was definitely fun. The Kia just felt really natural, smooth, right. It was not all that much different from the Subaru Outback I drive right now. I will tell you the VW took a little getting used to. I can't ever remember the last time I drove any VW, so I think that had more to do with it just being a European car, VW, than anything else. And but once I got used to it, after test driving all 3, while the Mustang was fun and everything, I think long term that VW would probably be the most comfortable and car of the ones that I drove. It just seemed to have a little bit more versatility and just a little bit more, I don't know, 21st century, something like that. But it was really nice. My family is in the market for an EV right now, and it was really great to get out there and test drive those and get a sense of what's out there. I see a question in the comments how tall I'm 6'1", And, you know, I had plenty of room in all three of the vehicles. I didn't feel cramped in any of them.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask the commissioner about his experience or about any of the EVs he drove? Cool. All right, well, if we don't have any questions out loud, feel free to type them in the chat and we can get to them after. But Commissioner, we seriously appreciate you taking the time to do that and celebrate Earth Day. The timing was great. Like you said, he's on the market for an EV, and we brought all these kind of crossover SUV vehicles, so it worked out great. So thank you for being our test driver for the day.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. Okay, so up next, we have our Xcel Energy representative, Elisa's here with us today to talk a little bit about charging and chargers.
Great.
Elisa.
Hi guys, thanks Gabriella. So I'm Elisa Subzak, and I've been working at Xcel on electric vehicles for just about 2 years now. And it's just such a fun job to learn about this technology, to help people understand why it's so great and could fit in your life. You know, I was listening to Andy talk about the experience, and it isn't some like tricky spaceship, right? They're really fun to drive and they're really easy to bring into your life. So I've enjoyed working with Gabriella and Bonnie and on helping people learn about EVs, and excited to talk to you guys today. I'm coming to you from my Minnesota home office, but I'm a former resident of Jefferson County. I spent a number of years in Golden, so nice to see you all there in Colorado. And I think, as was mentioned early on, you are likely Xcel Energy customers, and so I'm excited to talk to you about charging and how we can help. So next slide. Great. So I've been talking to some of my colleagues who work in our Denver metro area, and I've been hearing that you guys have been having kind of a long pathway to spring and lots of snow in April. And so one of the things that I like to talk about is how convenient they are to charge at home. When you have an electric vehicle, you can just put it in your driveway or your garage and charge it right there. And not having to stop at that gas station is just a great benefit. Next slide. So just getting into a little bit of the nitty gritty around how do you charge. One thing to know is that every plug-in electric vehicle comes with what's called a level 1 charger. And so this is, you drive home and you can plug in immediately and start charging. Plugs into a 120 volt outlet. Think about like a hair dryer, plugs right in, you can start charging. A level 1 charger is a basic charger, and so it's going to give you about 40 miles of range if you charge it overnight. And so if I think about driving habits, you know, if you've got a short commute, you could be charging with a level 1 charger and your EV and driving back and forth to work with no issues with that charger. I think the next slide talks about level 2 chargers. And so this is the other option that you have for charging an EV at home. And this charger is faster and more convenient. So you're going to get between 30 and 60 miles of range for every hour you charge. And when I talk to some EV drivers, they say, you know, I set my EV to charge overnight and it charges up fully in, you know, 2 to 4 hours. So it's ready to go in the morning. It's also really great if you're like jamming around doing errands and you need to quickly charge up, you can top it off quickly at home. I think there was a message in the chat about how much does it cost for a charger. So this faster level 2 charger, if you looked on Amazon today, you'd see a cost of somewhere in that $600 to $700 range. And we have some programs coming that can help take some of that out-of-pocket cost off the table for you guys. Next slide. Another thing to consider for installing that faster level 2 charger at your home is you might have some out-of-pocket costs to get the power to the charging location. So I've got a little picture here. You know, think about your panel. Is it in your basement? Do you have an attached garage? Do you have an open space to put a circuit in there? A level 2 charger takes a 240 volt circuit, much like your clothes dryer. So a bit more energy, or a bit bigger of a circuit. You'd have to have that in your panel and you'd have to run the wire to the charging location. And so in Minnesota, we've done some pilot programs and we found that while houses vary greatly, depending on if you have an attached or detached garage, a number of other factors, but on average, we're seeing people spend about $700 to get that wiring done to be able to use a level 2 charger. Next slide. So right now, if you're an Xcel Energy customer and you have an EV that you want to plug in and charge with us, you would take that home, you would plug it in and charge, and it would be billed at the same rate as everything else in your house. We do have some programs coming this fall that I'll talk about in a minute, but just a couple tips for you if you're doing this today. We know that there is more renewable energy on the grid in what's called off-peak hours. So think about overnight. You know, we have wind turbines on the plains and there's an overabundance of wind on the grid at night and we don't have a lot of use for it. So if people are willing to set their EV to charge at night, we can not only help the grid, but we can also help cleaner air by using more renewables on the grid. So there's an option there. And on the next slide, I'll talk about what's coming. And this is a little bit of an eye chart, but what I would say is we are so excited about the over 20 EV programs that are coming to both our residential and commercial and industrial customers in Colorado. We are hard at work right now back at the ranch, kind of developing all these programs. So we're looking at having some of the home charging programs in market in the September timeframe. And there's a few things that we're offering. One is, I talked about that cost to wire in your home from your panel to where you're going to charge your vehicle. And we're going to be offering a rebate for that work of $500. So we'll take away, hopefully, the majority of the cost for everyone. There is a sliding scale. Income qualified customers, we do have a $1,300 rebate. So that is exciting and that will definitely help take some costs out. Another thing that we know from pilots in Minnesota is that figuring out like, which charger do I want? How do I find the electrician? How do I get this all hooked up accurately? Has been a challenge. And so we're offering a charger service that makes it really easy. We've contracted with electricians we're vetting right now to negotiate really good pricing. We are working with level 2 EV manufacturers to come up with a list of EVs that we will include in our program. And the charger service is rented from us for about $13 a month. We send an electrician, we hook it up, we program it to charge overnight. And that electrician, if they do your home wiring at the same time, they can give you that quote up front. They can do the work all at once, and then they can instantly give you that rebate on your home wiring, kind of all in one fell swoop. One thing to note about that charger service, that $1,300 a month, that's instead of plunking down, $700 on your own to buy one, you could rent one from us. And what we do there is maintenance. So not only do we have it installed, but we maintain it in working condition. So, I think that as long as you're in the program, we come and fix it if it breaks, and if it's not fixable, we replace it. And then I think the last thing that I would mention is we have some options coming where if you're willing to set your charger to charge overnight, we will give you a bill credit or gift card for making that move to help us. And then Gabriella just shared the screen. We have some resources available on our website. You can email me and my colleagues at electricvehicles@xcelenergy.com. And then we have some blogs available as well. And I heard some pinging. I'm not sure if there's questions for me.
Let's take a look here.
Lisa, there's an interesting question from Tana saying, I've heard that EVs can help offset blackouts by acting as batteries for the entire system. Will Xcel be able to do this? And this is interesting considering some of the school bus things that we're seeing. So I'll let you.
Right. And, I think there's a very interesting opportunity, and, we're working on some programs, others are working on programs. If you think about the amount of time that cars sit, there is certainly an opportunity to use them as a battery that we could draw from as a utility and use during peak moments in time where energy usage is really high, and then put it back in the car. We're not there yet. Right now, we've got a school bus vehicle to grid program that we're working on. Think about school buses sitting all summer sometimes with a big battery capacity availability there. So more to come. I would say we'll know more in the next, maybe 6 months about what we're going to be able to offer.
Great. Thanks, Elisa. That's awesome. Bonnie, did we have any other questions related to charging in the chat?
Yeah, there was a question about the difference between level 2 and level 3, and I did answer that in chat, but I wondered, Elisa, if you wanted to say a few words about that. And then there's one other question after that.
Yeah, if we think about what you can do at home and what's available for a residential setting, level 3, which is DC fast charging, is too big for the home. So you're not going to be able to get something like that installed in home, but you'll see it a lot in public charging. I think Tesla's got, DC fast charging in their superchargers. So it's really about very fast charging, likely not at your home, but when you're out and about.
Great. And then the last question from Monica was more information on the charging wind source. Is it possible to have a charging station via solar panels?
Yeah, so we are working on options to integrate solar into our programs. I know in Minnesota, we have an option. I'm going to have to come back to you guys on what's coming in Colorado. I would say that what we have found is utility scale renewable programs are the most efficient way that we've seen to do it. So less, of an investment for a homeowner. Wind is really abundant. And if we can capture that, I think it helps our grid and it helps us towards our goal of carbon-free energy by 2050. But I'll take that away.
Great. Thanks, Elisa. Was that the last question for charging in the chat, Bonnie?
No, there was another question about when you if you charge your vehicle overnight and then end up not driving for a few days, does that charge sort of die off over time? How long will it stay in the battery?
Yeah, Bonnie, as an EV driver, you might be able to give some real world example on that. I would appreciate.
Yeah. I've driven an EV for 3 years now, and I find that I can charge, depending on how far I'm going to drive, I can charge my car once a week in the garage, leave it in the garage unplugged, for an entire week, and it'll lose, maybe depending on the weather. If it's super cold, it might lose, a percentage, I guess, in terms of miles, maybe 10 miles a day if it's super cold. But if it's not super cold, I won't see any mile range changes at all as it's sitting there. So I think if you leave it a long time, it may, you may start to see the charge die off a little bit. But you can charge your vehicle and then, leave it for a couple days and it will maintain that charge.
Awesome. Thanks, Bonnie. Thanks for clarifying. It's nice to have an experienced EV driver on the call to share their wealth of knowledge with all of us. Okay, so I think now, so thank you to Elisa for hopping on and talking about charging and all the great things that Excel has going on and to offer and soon to offer. So I wanted to this is just a rhetorical question, just to think about how far do you drive every day? How many miles is it to your home, to your work, or if you're working from home, is that just staying there? And how many miles are you driving, running errands, going to the store? What does that total out to? The average Americans drive less than 40 miles a day. So if you think about things in terms of range anxiety is one of those huge things people get when they have EVs, and they're just like, I do not have enough range on my vehicle. So gearing yourself up to think about how much you're actually driving a day and when you're going to be charging will help you get a little bit more comfortable and familiar with what that feels like. Like Elisa said, with charging at home, 90% of charging occurs at home. I don't think a lot of people know that. Fast chargers aren't usually like gas stations. They provide a quick 3 to 5 minute top off to get you home. And for road trips, like we had talked about before, expect 20 to 30 minutes for charging. So say you're coming home from a trip, you guys come to Northern Colorado or Southern Colorado for whatever reason, you're headed back, you're running low, but you're not like quite off the highway yet. You can stop somewhere at a level 3 charge for like 3 to 5 minutes to get you home to charge at your home location. Planning things like that will make things a lot easier for you, and just getting familiar with what's in your area. Level 2 destination chargers are becoming more and more available and accessible to the public. They can provide a quick range boost while you work, dine, or shop. You see these all the time at restaurants, movie theaters, retail locations, all the grocery stores, all these places are starting to develop EV charging. So getting yourself familiar with what's available in your area and how to access it when you're around it is going to make all of the difference for you. So I took a screenshot here of what's available on plugshare.com. That's a great website to use. I'll show you some others as well to just locate public charging in your area. So this you'll see here is a plethora of level 2 and level 3 charging stations there in the Denver metro region. So it'll just give you an idea of those are all over the place. This is what public chargers kind of look like in Colorado. I just wanted to throw those out there so that I'm sure you guys have all seen them at this point. They're popping up all over the place. So just to briefly go over locating public charging stations, PlugShare is one of those great websites or apps you can use to do that. All you have to do is you can share your current location with it or set where you're gonna be at, and it'll show you a map of what's in that area. The U.S. Department of Energy has an alt fuels data center that also keeps a database. There's the electric vehicle charging station location through that. And then Google Maps also has one. So you might even be able to find residential chargers through EV Match, which is a program where people who have residential chargers that are kind of accessible in their residence, like outside of their garage or somewhere in their driveway, they can actually add it to this app, and you can look up on this app what's available in your area, and you can just rent their charger for a little bit while they're not using it. So there's so many different options for you to access charging. So you'll just use one of these apps or websites to find it. And then to access them, sometimes they're so simple that you can just go up. If it's kind of like at the gas station, you just put your card in it and take the nozzle out and just start charging. But now there's Wi-Fi based ones that are more app based on your phone. So they'll require smartphone. So you can download the app of the charge. So you say you find an app, use PlugShare, you find a charge point or Blink charger, you drive to it, you'll download their app on your phone, and then that app will allow you to open up. You'll just follow the steps on there. You'll have to create a quick profile and add your Apple Pay or your card or whatever, and then you can just connect right up to it with the app. You just hold your phone up to it and it'll unlock the thing for you. So those are simple. There's so many demos online too to do charging. I recommend if you go visit a dealership, sometimes they have a charger on site, just give it a try, or test drive it somewhere to one just to give it a try, just to see the difference between fueling versus charging and what that feels like. And then I also just wanted to reshare this resource, driveelectriccolorado.org. On that website, we have listed EV deals from local dealers whenever we get those from them. So keep an eye on that deals page. If there's any deals running on at the dealers that we work with, we'll be sure to list those. You'll learn about all things charging, like we had talked about today. You'll get a charging 101. We even have an installation guide for residential charging. So if you're like, I'd love to get a charger installed, where do I start? There's a guide to help you do that on the website. Incentives and utility rebates, everything that we talked about through the Excel program, those resources are listed on the website. We also have, if you live outside of the Excel territory, you're in a different town, but you commute to work to Jeffco or you're working from home, we have a whole map listed out on there so you can find whatever options might be available to you through that utility. There's also information on Colorado EV clubs and their info to get connected with the EV community in your area. And then there's a list of all these different events we've got going on, and then blog posts. We do EV myth busters and things like that. So if you're like, I hear this all the time about EVs and I don't know if it's true, it's probably on the blog. So check it out. There's a lot of great stuff on there. And then I just wanted to open it up to you guys to Q&A. And then we also have one more survey for you guys to take. So I see some things going on in the chat, but I haven't had a chance to open it. Bonnie, do we have some more questions in there?
There were some questions about charging that we just answered, and then some questions about cars. All of the cars that you all have seen today are available in Colorado. So the Kia Niro, I-25 Kia, they're a great partner for us, and they have the Kia Niro. We're picking one up tomorrow for a demo that we're doing at School of Mines. So if you're in the area and you want to check that out in person, you can drop by the plaza over there between 1 and 2, I believe. Yep. And then, the VW ID4 is available. There are very few of them, available right now, so you kind of have to put your name on a list. And then, of course, the Mach-E is available, and there's just more and more coming available. So the other thing I want to mention is that we have coaches. So if you have questions beyond today, or maybe down the road you have a question, look us up on Drive Electric Colorado. We have real people, live actual people who drive EVs who can answer your questions. And in some cases, like last year, we actually went with 2 different drivers who were nervous about going to dealers by themselves. We went to the dealer with them, and if that's helpful to you, that's the length we will go to help you get into EVs. So any info on annual maintenance from Barb, I just put my annual maintenance in the chat a few minutes ago. Last year I drove about 12,000 miles. It was my electric car drives were my one way to get out of the house during COVID. It felt like I was in my bubble. I could drive around and see stuff. I was driving my electric car. Between, those 12,000 miles cost me total about $400. So, and there was some, I have to admit, there are a lot of free chargers out there. So I do like to take advantage of, I know the charger at Jeffco, I believe, is free. So think about that. If you charge at work, if that's an opportunity for you, or there are chargers at parking lots for stores that are free. So, but that's a huge savings. And then also keep in mind, Gabriella mentioned, there are no oil changes, no belts to change, no engine fluids. So, I mean, of course you have to put in windshield wipers, and, you have tires and things like that, but it's a much, once you buy the vehicle, it's a much less costly experience to drive the cars. And Commissioner, I see your hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. My question is similar to Barb's around maintenance. So get it with, no oil changes, belts, other fluids, but thinking especially around brakes and, there's always maintenance on any machine.
Mm-hmm.
Are most of our local service stations that we might normally be taking our internal combustion cars to right now, are they going to be able to do the services we need? Or are we mostly going to be needing to go back to the producer that we bought the car from, that their service techs will be specially trained? What's your experience with that?
So I just got new tires on my car, and I took my car to the regular tire place, and they, changed it like they would any other car. For if there are drivetrain issues, generally, I think, especially now, I mean, we're still, 3 to 5 years into really having a lot of these EVs on the road. And so it is, we do find that you have to go back to the dealer or the service center, depending on what kind of car you drive. I haven't found that to be an issue. The dealers that we're working with do have, the right people on their staff to make sure that they keep these cars moving forward. I do want to talk about the brakes for the electric cars. Gabriella's going to roll her eyes because this is my favorite topic, but electric vehicles have regenerative braking. And I don't know, Commissioner, if you noticed this, but when you are driving the cars, if you put your foot on the accelerator and then you take your foot off the accelerator but don't press the gas, in most cases the cars are going to slow down much more quickly than an internal combustion car would, because the cars use what's called regenerative braking. So it's where when you're, instead of using friction to stop the car is actually using its own inertia to stop itself, which, and maybe I'm not saying that right. I'm not a scientist, so please excuse me if I'm not saying that right. But it is, like Gabriella mentioned earlier, it is rolling that energy back into the battery. So coming down a hill, if you spent, and let's just say you're going up the hill a range of, it's 5 miles and 5 miles to get up the hill. You can come back down the hill, and in some cases, depending on how steep that hill was, get 10 miles of range back from regenerating braking energy. But what that means for repairs for your cars is that for the life of your car, you may never have to change the brakes because you're not using them. You're using this regenerative braking. So just and keep in mind that an electric car has about 70, the drivetrain has about 70 pieces, and a gasoline car has about 7,000 components. So just in terms of complexity, there's a lot of savings there too. But to answer your question directly, Commissioner, that is a great opportunity for workforce development. There are huge opportunities for school, the trade schools to be providing this training, and we're starting to see that happen. There are more and more programs coming every day to train this workforce that's going to be needed to, keep the electric vehicles on the road.
Awesome. Thanks, Bonnie. Do we have any more questions?
I was corrected by Jabez. Chargers at Jeffco are not free, but almost 25 cents an hour. So if you're charging at, I don't know what, I'm sure they're level 2 chargers that may get, let's say they get 20 miles to the hour, that's 25 cents that you're paying for 20 miles of range. So it's a pretty good deal. And then Rob asks, how long do batteries last? Do they ever just die and can't be recharged? So batteries, we're finding batteries are lasting, depending on how they're driven, up to millions of miles. They're really lasting a lot longer than anyone early on in this industry thought they would. Something important to note is that most of the manufacturers right now have a battery warranty of 800,000 miles. So think about that. Think about how long you want to drive that car. So I mean, that battery is going to be warranted the lifetime of the vehicle. So do they ever just die and can't be recharged? Yes. I mean, just like anything, mechanical, chemical, there are times that happens. You can also, depending on how you use your battery, you can degrade your battery to the extent where the charge is so much smaller than it was when you got it that you may want to consider, a new car, a new battery. What we're finding is a lot of the batteries are being recycled. If they're not being recycled for the components of the batteries, they're being recycled as a full battery to provide energy storage. So they'll put them, they'll use these used batteries that aren't good for cars or buses anymore, and they'll put them in a large battery stack that then will charge, store energy for a solar array or a wind array or something like that. So there's a lot of really interesting things happening in batteries. And then Renee asks, what happens if you go too far and lose charge? Well, it's like running out of gas. Your car just stops running and you have to call, AAA or whatever it is. And AAA does have chargers. They'll bring a truck out with a little generator and charge your car for you. A lot of the manufacturers also have a rescue service in that case where you can call them to come and charge you, or you can, tow it to wherever you want and get a charge. But it is essentially like running out of gas.
Cool. That was a good question. Let's see. Andy Kerr says he has a question about Excel and solar panels. Elisa, are you still on with us?
I am still on.
Awesome.
Great. This might be a little bit in the weeds, but so we have solar panels on our house, and the way the law is in Colorado is that the solar panels are designed to provide somewhere between 75 to 80% of the the electricity that we use in my house. They're not designed to do 100, 110%. They're specifically designed to be a little bit under. Now, if I were to get, when I get my EV and are charging it at home, I will be using more electricity. Do you know, is there the opportunity for me to work with my my solar provider to expand my solar panels, my solar array on my house to account for my total usage going up like that?
Yeah, I can't, I'm not the one to answer that question, but I have, colleagues that I can go to and ask that question. What I will say is if you were to use electricity to charge that EV and sign up for one of our overnight charging options, you would be getting a $50 bill credit every year to help fund that down. If you were using electricity, there's also a renewable option, but I will go get the answer on solar for you.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jabez knows how to get a hold of me.
Great.
And I know how to get a hold of Jabez, Elisa.
I figured you did. Awesome.
Great. Cool. Well, it looks like we're a little over time here, but I wanted to thank the commissioner and Jabez and the whole Jeffco team for setting this up and celebrating Earth Day with us. Thank you to Excel Energy and Elisa for being here and talking about all the great things going on at Excel Energy. And then also thank you to I-25 Kia, Phil Ford Long, and I'm forgetting one here, the Tynan's Volkswagen for lending us these 3 EVs and letting us take them for the day to test drive. That was really great. So thank you all for being here today. I'll be sure to send a follow-up email with some resources to you, and feel free to ask any questions or connect with me that way. I'm happy to help in any way. But thank you guys so much for being here today. I hope you test drive some EVs soon, and happy Earth Day, Jeffco. I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, Gabriella.
Happy Earth Day. Thanks,
Happy
everyone.
Earth Day, everybody.